So the Miami Heat beat the Sixers. Game 5, we called it. Miami Heat minus 2.5. We cashed. A typical series where the home team plays well, the road team struggles. It's been like that. It's just been a back and forth. Heat won 2 games at home. Sixers won 2 at home. Now the Heat won a game at home. It's going back to Philadelphia. I would lean Philadelphia. Nothing official. Going to have to study, break that stuff down. I'll come out with an official play on that game probably tomorrow. Thank you to everybody who's been following the channel, the Instagram, the Twitter, the YouTube, everybody who's been keeping up with the picks. We've been cashing 43 and 23 so far on the year. So let's talk about this game a little bit. We got Jimmy Butler. He's been coming out playing hard for the Heat while they've been on the road, but it's not resulting in wins. The Heat play their best basketball when all hands are on deck, when guys are swinging the ball, when the shooters are able to catch a rhythm. And that's what happened early in this game, Game 5 at home. They got Max Strus going. They got the role players going. The ball was moving around. And that's when the Heat are at their best, when they're playing defense, when they're active to the ball. And the Heat are another team like the Phoenix Suns where you have to beat them. They're going to play good basketball. They're going to be on top of their stuff. They're not world beaters. They're not just like incredible, but they're a high-level team where you have to play great to beat them. Teams like them, the Heat, the Suns, the Celtics, these are real good teams where you have to play at a very high level to beat them. They're not like the greatest teams you've ever seen before. They're not superstar-driven teams where the talent level is just absurd, but they're teams that are really well connected, really locked in. They're on the same page. They got a lot of chemistry, and you have to be playing at a high level to beat them. The way that the Mavericks beat the Suns by hitting 20-plus threes on the road, you have to beat the Sixers. The only way to beat the Heat is if James Harden has a game that he has, or Embiid has a game that he has, or Danny Green hits 7 threes in Game 3. That's the only way that you're going to beat the Heat, because the Heat play at a high level. And the Sixers, on an average day, they're not quite at the same level as Miami. So I do lean Miami winning the series. Before the series started, I had Miami in 6. If Miami wins the next game, it could be Miami in 6. But I could see Philadelphia winning. Like I said, nothing official yet. So it might go 7, but they're going to talk about on this segment, ESPN First Take, they're going to talk about, is this more about Philly and their struggles, or is this more about Miami and how well they played? So let's get into it.
Does this blowout say more about Philly or Miami?
It said more about the Sixers. It was a weak, putrid, pathetic performance on the part of the Philadelphia 76ers. They should be ashamed of themselves, KP. We've seen teams lose in the postseason. Hell, we've seen teams get blown out in the postseason. It happens. This is a series that was tied 2-2. You were down 0-2. You got Joel Embiid back. You came back and you played Game 3 and 4, and you balled out. James Harden showed up in Game 4, had 31 points. We know Embiid.
And that James Harden, piggying back on his James Harden comments, that James Harden performance, it's just not sustainable. James Harden isn't going to go off like that, hitting 6 threes, the step back falling. He's just not going to do that. James Harden nowadays, if that step back isn't falling, he's not getting to the basket the same way that he used to be able to. So when that step back isn't falling, and most of the time it's not anymore because defenders can sit on it, but when that step back's not falling, he's not going to be scoring a whole lot. When you look at the Sixers box score on most nights, it's Embiid and then it's Maxey or Harris. And James Harden's like their 4th leading scorer. I mean, if you just hand the ball to one of them and say, go get a basket, I like Maxey and Tobias' chances of scoring more than I like Harden. I mean, really, if you're talking purely points, he's their 4th option. But because he can create so much for others, because he's still a great passer and a real good facilitator, because he can do that, he can get into the lane and kick it out, throw the lob, it makes him still their 2nd best overall player. But Maxey is right on his heels. Like Maxey is coming. Maxey is a beast. He's a guy who can shoot from long range. He's a guy who can get up there and make acrobatic plays with the best of them at the rim. So Maxey's a beast. He's someone to watch out for. Really, really talented young player.
With the thumb and the eye socket, the fracture in his face, he still showed up and showed out in Game 4. You tied this series up, you lose, you lose. Miami may be a better team, even though you're the Philadelphia 76ers. You got the best player. We get all of that. But you lose some, you win some, etc., etc. But they didn't show up. The Philadelphia 76ers, and I'm not saying they did, please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, I'm just using an analogy. KP, and you can put me up on the split screen so I can see KP when I say this. Them brothers look like they were partying in South Beach the night before. Now, we know that wasn't the case. I'm not accusing them of that. I'm saying that's how they looked. They looked like they were hanging out and they were chilling and they had a very laissez-faire attitude, and they came out there with absolutely positively nothing. They got outscored by 12 in the first quarter. They got outscored by 20 in the fourth quarter, and along the way, they were fluctuating between a 10-point deficit to an 18, 19-point deficit before they flat out got their ass kicked in the second half.
Yeah, but that's why I would say this is more about the Heat. The Heat are a team that Perkins is going to talk about it later, but the Heat are a team that they're well conditioned, they're on top of it, they're very well focused, they're connected, and they're going to make you earn it. Like I said earlier, the Heat are a team, they're going to make you earn it. You got to beat them. They're going to play at a high level, and you got to get over them. You got to outplay them at the good level that they're going to be playing at. You got to come with it. So I just think at home, you're getting the calls. The role players aren't hitting as many shots. To defeat a team like Miami that's just professional and on top of their stuff, it's going to be pretty hard. And this was a game Miami deserved to win because they put in the type of work to have home court advantage, and they put in the type of work where, they deserve the perks of this. They've worked hard to get home court, and when you have home court, you're giving your role players an extra game to get going. You're giving yourself an opportunity where in a season where players like to coast throughout the regular season, you're giving yourself a shot where when you play a team and it's tied 2-2 at the end of 4 games, you get home court. So they deserve this. They got to capitalize on the opportunity, and Philly came up a little short. Now we're going to see in Game 6 if Danny Green or Niang or somebody can get going, because Embiid's going to need some help. It can't just be Embiid in Game 6. Somebody has to come for the ride. Really, 2 people are going to have to come for the ride. Somebody's going to have to hit some threes, and somebody, Harden or Maxey, Tobias Harris, someone's going to have to ball out.
I mean, this was embarrassing, and the reason why it hits me home is because you and I both know how we feel about Doc Rivers, and we know how we feel what a great coach he is. If they played so badly last night in terms of their lethargy, their lack of energy and effort and zest, they played so bad that if they lose Game 6, Kendrick Perkins, we both know who's the first person that's going to suffer. It's probably going to be Doc Rivers. I don't want to hear about no money. I don't want to be hearing about the money they'll owe him or whatever. They'll find a way to wiggle themselves around that, and they're going to get rid of Doc Rivers, and they're the scapegoat. And for this man to be coaching this team, as great of a coach, I don't care about the 3-1 deficits that he lost. The bottom line is Doc Rivers is one of the top 15 coaches in history.
Hell no. No, hell no, no, hell no. No, he is not. You cannot be a top 15 coach. That list that they had of the top coaches, that list was trash, by the way. You cannot be a top 15 coach of all time, and you've choked as many leads as Doc Rivers does. To be a coach, I've talked about this before. Coaching is about preparing your guys, but coaching is also about making adjustments when the preparation doesn't go your way. When the things you prepared for aren't quite lining up, or you didn't prepare for certain things that ended up being the main issues in games, it's about adjusting to that. Sometimes you adjust in game. Sometimes in a series, you may lose a game, but you adjust for the next game. When you compare Doc Rivers just to the black coaches in the NBA, because Stephen A is kind of, he's saying Doc Rivers doesn't deserve the blame and this and that. When you compare Doc Rivers just to the black coaches in the NBA, Doc Rivers isn't better than Monty Williams. Doc Rivers isn't better than the coach in Boston, Udoka. He's not better than Udoka. He's not better than the coach Bickerstaff. I believe his name is Bickerstaff in Cleveland. He's not better than these guys. He's definitely not better than Tyronn Lue. Tyronn Lue is the best coach in the NBA, in my opinion. Black Bill Belichick is what they've been calling him. And, I've felt that way about Tyronn Lue for a while now. Tyronn Lue makes the best adjustments. Tyronn Lue has the most balls than any coach in the league right now. And once Tyronn Lue became the head coach of that Clippers franchise, they went from a team that blew a 3-1 lead to a team that came back from 0-2. Really, they were almost down 0-3 in Game 3 against the Mavericks. The Kawhi and PG Clippers, they were down like 30-10 to start the game in Dallas, Game 3. So the Clippers came back from 0-2 and won that game that they were down like 20 early in Game 3. They came back, won that game, and they ended up winning the series. So it's just different when you have Ty Lue leading it versus when you have Doc Rivers leading. So all this Doc Rivers top 15 coach, man, get out of here with that. If Doc Rivers blows this, they're probably going to bring in D'Antoni into Philadelphia. Now, I wouldn't do that because I'd rather have a different type of coach to pair up with Embiid. but they'll probably bring D'Antoni in there to pair up with James Harden. I like D'Antoni. We've been hearing the rumors of D'Antoni to Charlotte, and I was kind of thinking that before I heard any rumors. It just kind of made sense. It felt like a good fit. D'Antoni with LaMelo Ball, Bridges, he would make them fun to watch. He would add some excitement. He could maybe make them a playoff team, and then another coach could come in and take them over the hump. So D'Antoni to Charlotte would be my choice, but D'Antoni to Philadelphia is a very real possibility.
Brother can coach, okay? And the fact is he's going to be the scapegoat for this horrible, lackluster, lethargic effort that they put forth last night. They should be ashamed of themselves, and I'm telling you right now,
Yeah, Doc Rivers should be the scapegoat. Either Doc Rivers or James Harden. That's who you got to blame it on. I mean, both guys are chokers, so either way, it's just kind of cementing their legacy as both guys being chokers throughout their career. I mean, Doc Rivers, when he was addressing the media a couple weeks ago, I want to say it was last week or maybe the week before, and they were talking about all the series that he's choked, and he mentioned something about his Orlando team. I think they were up 2-0, and the team had Tracy McGrady, Drew Gooden, and it had some other guys on there, and he was like, well, if you look at the squad that we had, you know, the fact that we were up 2-0 is crazy, or like blah, blah, blah. Like, he was trying to throw the players under the bus. Like, it wasn't his fault that the team choked. It's actually he was coaching a terrible team that it was incredible that they were even up 2-0. Like, he's just the ultimate excuse maker. Like, to have a head coach like that who's just an excuse maker, you cannot lead a group of men and be an excuse maker. You just can't.
better show up in Game 6, and they better play. Because Philadelphia, the city of Philadelphia, is going to hold them accountable. It's not their performance. It was their effort that was sorely lacking last night. It was shameful.
Well, Stephen A., I have to respectfully disagree. I think this is more about the Miami Heat, and I think it's more about the Heat and their culture, right? This comes down to the point where you get in the second round of the playoffs and you're starting to get towards the tail end in the Eastern Conference and the finals and things to that nature. Now, all of a sudden, you're starting to talk about cardio, conditioning, and who wants it the most, okay? And when I look at the Miami Heat and I think about their culture, there's no organization that I will put above the Miami Heat when it comes down to being in shape. And so
that's a fact. Everybody, I mean, besides Kyle Lowry, that's another story, but everybody on that Heat roster is in pretty elite conditioning. So I give Perkins credit on that. I agree. And I just think that the Heat came in there and they smacked them in the mouth. The Heat came in there with intensity. They came in there putting hands in faces on the three-point shot. They came in there running in transition, getting to the boards. Everybody was attacking the glass. And when you have a team doing that at home, and then they're getting the atmosphere of the home court, and they're getting the referees on their side, and they just come out with that energy, you know that you're most likely going to win the game unless the other team, the road team, just has a crazy hot night or somebody just goes off, like just has, you know, one of those great all-time games, one of those great all-time performances. You're probably going to end up winning the game. Because when the Heat went up 2-0 against the Sixers, they just looked like the far better team, but that was without Embiid. Then in Game 3, you had the Heat coming out a little flat because they know in the back of their minds it's not a must-win game. We don't really have to win this game. We still can win the series and come out flat in Game 3. We can coast in Game 3, preserve some energy. It's just not, psychologically, it's just not a desperation spot the same way it is for Philly. Like, Philly needed to win Game 3. It was, you know, all hands on deck for Game 3. And Philadelphia came out and they handled business. Embiid playing, gave them a boost of energy. Danny Green hit shots. And in Game 4, they were able to hold off the Heat because James Harden had a hot night. James Harden finally gave you a night. I mean, he got to give you at least one. So he gave you a hot night, and you were able to pull off Game 4 at home. You were able to front run a little bit and tie the series up. But Game 5, with the Heat playing desperate and Philadelphia maybe relaxing a little bit because they tied the series up, the Heat are going to show you, hey, just like the first two games, whether you have Embiid or not, we're the better team. We come out with more energy. When we come out with pace, when we come out playing defense, we're the better team. We play more disciplined basketball. So it doesn't matter if Embiid's there or not. When we're focused, we're going to beat you guys. And it'll be interesting to see if the Heat can carry that same focus and same energy into Game 6. I don't have a call on who I got so far, nothing official. But that's going to be an interesting game to watch. I do think the Heat win the series, though. Whether it's in 6 or whether it's in 7, I do think the Heat are going to end up pulling this thing away.
So what end up happening is that now you don't have 2 days in between. You have 1 day, and usually on that day you're traveling. You land in Miami, and now it's time to go. And so what I see is now all of a sudden the Philadelphia 76ers, they look exhausted. Hell, Joel Embiid, he looked exhausted. That man has been through everything and more this past season. I mean, when you talk about adversity, I don't know no other player in the NBA that's had to go through as much as Joel Embiid. Forget the fact that he's still playing on a bum knee at the moment. We forgot about all that. Forget the fact that he has a broken bone or eye or whatever you want to call it in his face. Forget the fact that he's had to carry this load by himself, basically, because James Harden has been non-existent. And at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, the Heat imposed their will. On the defensive side of things, they were more physical. They were more ready. They're more in shape. Offensively, I thought they did an exceptional job of shifting the defense.
How many times y'all gonna show the video of this man getting knocked down? We get it.
Using both sides of the floor. They had 7 guys in double figures.
They still showing this shit. Like, we get it. The dude got knocked down. We get it.
Last night. Look, this wasn't all about that the Philadelphia 76ers just didn't want it. It was just about the Miami Heat are just in better shape than them, and it's coming down to that point about it's not about X's and O's. It's about who's in better shape and who wants it.
Agreed. Kendrick Perkins made some great points in this segment. Once again, Game 6 is going to be very interesting, but I do think the Heat are going to end up winning this series. Whether they can pull it together in Game 6, it'll probably be a tough one, or if Game 7 they got to go back to Miami. I just think the Heat are the better overall team top to bottom. Way better coaching. Way better coaching. And like Perkins said, they're just in better conditioning. They're in better shape mentally, physically. I just think they're a stronger group. So we'll see. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.